In this video, I'm going to walk you through some do's and don'ts for a DIY van build. The stuff that I thought was clever at the time, but ended up being some of my biggest mistakes. And before you panic, I don't regret doing a van build, but what I do regret is kind of how I went about it. There's a few things that cost me time, sanity, and more than a couple of nights sleep. And if you are just starting your own van build, this is me waving a big red flag, so you don't make the same mistakes that I did. So let's start with one of my earliest regrets. I went all in on drawers. Every single thing in this van was supposed to live in this drawer. On paper it made sense, neat, tidy, accessible, but in reality they were incredibly heavy. They stole a ton of usable space and they became this clunky system where I had to play Tetris every single time I needed to get something out of them. And honestly, I should have just left half the space open and shoved tubs under the bed. Like, it's van life. You don't win awards for your drawer game. And the lesson here is not everything needs to be custom built or boxed in. Sometimes the simplest, maybe the ugliest solution, like just a big tub or a $10 shelf off Marketplace, is actually the smartest decision. And that's what's going to be the theme in this video, is knowing when to build, when to buy, and when you just need to let go of that Pinterest string. Because here's the truth that no one told me when I was obsessing over my van build. You do not have to build everything yourself. And you don't have to spend a stupid amount of time and money on brand new gear. I learned that the hard way, that the cheap stuff can actually get very expensive very quickly. And DIY everything can cost you months of time and stress that you are never going to get back. So let me show you what I'd never do again and what I would absolutely still stand by. And hopefully by the end, you're going to have a realistic map of what is worth your time, worth your money, and what's only worth it if you enjoy punishing yourself with power tools at like 2 a.m. in the morning. When I started this build, I was honestly determined to save money. If I could DIY it, I absolutely would. If I found something cheap online, I bought it. And sometimes that worked, like this filing cabinet. I got it off Facebook Marketplace for $50. No, I think it was free. Was it free? It was free, and it's still going strong, but other times it was an absolute disaster. So in this video, I'm going to break down honestly what I would never do again, the drawer obsession, some electronics from the bargain bin, and trying to build everything myself. And I want to show you what was worth every cent of my money, like a real mattress, a decent toilet, and a bunch of gear that actually lasts. So think of this as a shortcut. If you're planning your own van, these are my do's and don'ts I wish that I knew before I wasted a lot of time, a lot of money, and a very hot and painful night on a piece of foam. So if I had to do it again, and thankfully I don't, I'd follow a much simpler plan. Not a blueprint for the van itself, but kind of a blueprint for how I went about the build. And honestly, I think it comes down to 3 rules. Rule 1, build when it actually makes sense. Don't build because you think you have to. If you love tinkering, sure, make that custom table, build a bed frame, but sometimes a free $50 filing cabinet from Marketplace does the same job as a weekend in a shed with power tools. Just go with the filing cabinet. Save your energy for the parts of the van you actually care about. Rule 2, buy once, cry once. And this applies to electronics, plumbing, anything that is critical to your comfort and safety. I wasted so much time on cheap, but that kind of like good enough gear. which in the end always failed me. The reality is the toilet, your MPPT, your batteries, they are not places to gamble. Spending a little extra up front and crying about it when you buy it is better than just redoing it or having a safety issue later on. Rule 3, Marketplace is your best friend. Half the stuff in this van came from Facebook Marketplace. Kitchen storage, a bunch of building materials. Why? Because people are constantly upgrading, downsizing, or ditching stuff that might work perfectly fine for you. And honestly, I would much rather recycle somebody's old shelf than spend 4 days in Bunnings just trying to reinvent it. So that's the plan that I wish I had from day one. Build only what matters. Buy once for the critical stuff, cry about the price, and that's it. And scavenge the rest of your stuff. It would have saved me so much frustration, so much wasted money, and honestly, so much space in my head, because the biggest mistake wasn't the drawers or the cheap electronics or even the horrible foam mattress that came when we bought the van. The real mistake was thinking that I had to do it all the hard way, and I just didn't. And honestly, neither do you. Now, I want to take you through what that looked like in practice and then where it all went wrong. So let's go through it, because each mistake has its own little backstory, and each one has kind of taught me something that I would honestly never forget. Let's start where we've kind of already touched, the drawer obsession. I honestly thought drawers were going to be my golden ticket to organization. I had sketches, I had measurements, I had visions of this van being a tiny little IKEA on wheels. And to be fair, it did look tidy, but actually living with them, completely different story. They took up precious space. They weighed quite a bit, and they turned into these awkward little puzzles. So like trying to reach into the back of a deep drawer when you're like half asleep and you just want a coffee sachet, I swear I almost dislocated a shoulder trying to fit my arm in the back of these drawers. And in hindsight, having just an open space with some tubs under the bed would have been faster, cheaper, way more practical. And the funny part of the whole thing is I kept defending these drawers for months. Like I'd be like, oh no, this is fine. I like the way that this is. The system's fine. Deep down, I think Elise and I both knew it was awful, but we'd already sunk time and money into building them and putting them into the van. And the sunk cost trap of van builds, that's the issue. You convince yourself it works because you don't want to admit that the hours that you wasted or the money that you wasted. Do not do what I did. Be honest with yourself. If something is not working, rip it out. Start fresh. I had my whole system wired up with the cheapest compatible MPPT that I could find. Saved me a couple $100. And at first it seemed fine. The numbers on the screen, the lights were flashing, and it all looked good. And then one day it melted. No warning, no explanation. I kind of just came to the van and then I smelled burning plastic, and then yeah, it had melted. And when something like that fails, you can't just like swap the part. You have to pull it apart. You have to rewire things. You have to pray that you don't fry anything else. And it turned my finished build into a half-finished nightmare all over again. And that's when I finally said, all right, enough is enough. We're buying some decent Victron gear. Was it expensive? Yes. Did it hurt my wallet? Absolutely. But now I don't lie awake wondering if the whole system is about to catch fire while I'm asleep. And the moral of that buy once, cry once thing that I said, it's one thing to save money on secondhand furniture or marketplace shelves. It's another thing to gamble on the stuff that keeps your fridge running, your lights on. And if I could go back, it's a shortcut that I would never make again. Which honestly brings me to the mattress saga. Oh boy. Because so when we started out, it came with this foam mattress thing. Because that's what it came with, you know. So we decided we were gonna sleep on it for the first night. Except the first night that we laid down on that foam, I honestly thought we were being punished by the gods. It was lumpy, it was hot, and it was like sleeping on damp insulation. I woke up 3 a.m. sore, sweaty, and very aware that this was not going to work for us. And I think the very next day we went out and bought a real innerspring mattress from IKEA. It was like $200, and it changed everything. Sleep went from misery to comfort pretty much instantly. And to this day, it is one of the few choices that I will defend to my grave. Because if you are building a van, don't cheap out on sleep. Trust me. Your bed is probably the place where you're going to be spending the most time. And so, here's another mistake. Thinking that I had to build everything. It became this like weird competition in my head. Like if I didn't handcraft every single part of the van, it wouldn't count. And so I wasted days. We both wasted days of cutting plywood, fiddling in Bunnings with hinges, sanding corners that no one ever noticed but me. And then one day, Elise grabbed this filing cabinet off Facebook Marketplace. We slid it in there, and then we had a kitchen. Done. No sanding, no swearing, no saw back, and it was free. That's when it clicked for me, at least. It's not about proving that you can build everything. It's just about making your space livable. Honestly, Marketplace became our secret weapon. Shelves, little bits of furniture, random materials. It's all cheaper, faster, and less painful than trying to DIY it. There's some weird pride that comes in rescuing something from someone's garage and giving it a second life in your van. Plus, you save hundreds of dollars, sometimes potentially even thousands, depending on what you've got. And it doesn't have to be fancy to work. And the sooner that you realize that, I think the sooner that you'll actually enjoy that process. Okay, let's get on to our next one. Okay, now, the toilet. I'm gonna be blunt. I started out thinking I would just get by with kind of like the cheapest toilet that I could find. And technically it did do the job, but you know what else it did? Leaked. And it wasn't that easy to empty. And it made for a very anxiety-inducing gamble. Switching to the Seaflow toilet wasn't glamorous, but it gave me a lot of peace of mind. And peace of mind is everything when you're living in a 2x4 meter box on wheels. And I feel like that's the thread running through all of this. Practicality over pride. Drawers looked nice, but tubs worked better. Cheap electrics looked like a bargain, but the Victron saved me. A foam mattress was cheap because it came in the van, but a better night's sleep was priceless. Building everything myself was clever, but Marketplace kept me sane. Cheap toilet, a bit of a nightmare. Decent toilet, relief in every sense of the word. It's not about being that perfect DIYer, it's about creating the space that works for you. And that's where most of my regrets have actually come from, chasing that perfection instead of having something practical. I wanted it to look the part, I wanted it to tick a box, when in reality, I just really needed it to work. Here's the twist. Every single mistake I made, the drawers, the cheap gear, the failed experiments, they all drove me a little nuts at the time, but looking back, I don't know if I would erase them. Okay, I'd probably erase the foam mattress. That one was pretty bad, but the rest, they are the reason that the van works so well for us today. Because the truth is, every DIY build that I did was a practice run for the life that I wanted. You don't really know what you need until you're living it. You can watch hundreds of van tours, you can copy somebody else's design, but until you've woken up in the middle of the night with your arms stuck in the back drawer, trying to find some Panadol, You don't actually know what's gonna work for you. And honestly, the mistakes taught me more than the wins ever did. If I hadn't have fried that cheap MPPT, I honestly might still be running bargain bin electrics and praying every night that the fridge stayed on and I didn't catch on fire. If I hadn't have wasted hours on building frittily storage, I never would have discovered the beauty and ease of marketplace hacks. The mistakes forced me to simplify and get real about what mattered to me and what didn't. I feel like that's why I call it a twist, because these mistakes, these regrets are the things that have given me clarity. They are the reason I can tell you with confidence, hey, don't bother with this. And for the love of the gods, don't sleep on a foam mattress. So if you're sitting there planning your own build, don't be scared of your mistakes. The key is to make mistakes that teach you, not mistakes that break you. And the only way to do that is to get started. So where does that leave me now? After all the drawers, the cheap gear, the failed shortcuts, what is the takeaway? The takeaway is I finally stopped trying to build a showroom and I started building a life. And there's a big difference in that. A showroom van looks amazing on Instagram, looks amazing when you show it to people, but it doesn't always function in the real world. A life van that's messy, practical, and it works, it's about comfort, not perfection, about peace of mind, not proving a point. And it shows up in the choices that I would make again. The mattress, completely non-negotiable. A toilet that you can rely on that's easy and no stress to empty? Absolutely. Proper electrics that don't keep you awake every night thinking about fires? Worth every cent. Less pressure, more practicality, less proving, more living. The regrets are still there, sure, but they've turned into stories, I think, not failures. And if those stories save someone a little bit more stress, then honestly, I'd call it a win. So here we are at the end of the list. Drawers, I'd never build again. Cheap electrics, I'd wish I'd skipped. The night on the foam that nearly broke me, and the wins, the mattress, the filing cabinet, the toilet that honestly actually does its job. And the funny part is, this video isn't really about furniture or batteries. It's about how you approach the whole thing. Because, and here's the truth for you, the van is just a shell. It's the way you live in it that makes it work. And you can't figure that out on your own day one. You learn it by trial, by error, by cursing at the drawer that won't open, and realizing that foam is a cruel, cruel joke. The mistakes are part of the build. They're part of the story of van life. And without them, this little box on wheels wouldn't feel like home. Don't waste months chasing perfection. Build enough to get rolling and then let the van teach you the rest. And spend where it matters. Sleep, power, peace of mind. Those things will carry you through the long nights and obscenely hot days. Because in the end, the van isn't supposed to be a project that impresses strangers online. It's supposed to be about a life that works for you. And if that means ripping out drawers, upgrading gear, and laughing at your own bad decisions along the way, perfect. It honestly means that you're doing it right. So if you take anything away from this video, honestly, let it be this. Don't measure your build by what you regret. Measure it by what makes you smile when you climb in at the end of the day. For me, it's a mattress that doesn't break my back, a fridge that stays cold, and knowing that my lights are going to turn on every single night. Honestly, thank you for hanging out with me on this one. If you are building your own van, I hope my mistakes save you maybe a little bit of pain. And if you're just here for stories, I hope it reminds you that the good bits mostly always come out of the mess. Make sure you hit subscribe if you want more real talk about van life. And I'm going to see you in the next one. In the meantime, watch some of these videos. Okay, bye!